Pure substances, or sometimes we leave the pure off and we just call them substances. Pure substances or substances have a fixed composition and therefore also have fixed properties. There are two types of substances, elements and compounds. We remember that elements are samples of matter that contain only a single type of atom, such as I've shown here, iron or nitrogen. You'll remember that nitrogen is a diatomic element. Sulfur is one of the polyatomic elements that go around in clumps of 8. Uranium is another example of an element. Compounds are also substances, and you remember that compounds have at least two different types of atoms bonded together in a fixed ratio, like water, sodium chloride, and HNO3, which could have several names, but when it's mixed with water it's called nitric acid. And there's a sample of sodium chloride. So, pure substances can either be elements or compounds. Pure substances, you can see at the bottom of the screen, have a chemical formula. With no plus sign in the middle, pure substances have a chemical formula. Mixtures contain two or more substances that are mixed together. They have a varying composition, and because of that varying composition, they have varying properties. The components of a mixture are not chemically bonded, so they retain their individual properties. Tea, orange juice, oceans, and air are mixtures. Air, for example, is mainly nitrogen, about 80%, and roughly 20% oxygen, but those two elements are simply mixed together. They're not chemically bonded to each other. They're just standing next to each other. Nitrogen molecules and oxygen molecules standing next to each other, all mixed up. That's the difference between a mixture and something like a compound, in which the different atoms are chemically bonded to each other. There are two types of mixtures. Homogeneous mixtures are also called solutions. And in a homogeneous mixture, the sample has the same composition and properties throughout. It is evenly mixed at the particle level. That is, at the tiniest possible level, a homogeneous mixture is mixed up. Salt water, for example, is an example of a homogeneous mixture. When you take a spoonful of salt and put it into a reasonable amount of water and stir it, pretty soon the salt all dissolves and it looks exactly perfectly uniform. The top of it does, the bottom, any part of that sample looks, tastes exactly the same as every other part of that sample. That's what we mean by evenly mixed at the particle level. Kool-Aid would be another homogeneous mixture. Typically we think of solutions as being liquidy things, but they don't have to be. A homogeneous mixture of metals is called an alloy, and here are several alloys. Bronze, which is a mixture of copper and tin, pewter, which is a mixture of lead and tin, and brass, which is a mixture of copper and zinc. Notice that we've put a plus sign in between these element symbols to show that these atoms, while they are mixed together and standing next to each other, they are not chemically bonded. That is the big difference between a mixture and a compound. In a mixture, the components are not bonded to each other. The other type of mixture is a heterogeneous mixture. In a heterogeneous mixture, the sample has different composition and properties throughout. It's unevenly mixed. A tossed salad, for example, is a heterogeneous mixture. One forkful is invariably different from the next forkful. Raisin bran is another example of a heterogeneous mixture. Any mixture where you can detect a noticeable difference between one part of the sample and another part is a heterogeneous mixture. A suspension is a specific type of heterogeneous mixture that will settle out over time. Paint, for example, is a suspension and therefore a heterogeneous mixture. Paint has to be stirred or shaken up before it's used to mix the components of the mixture evenly so that the paint effectively does its job. Here's another example of a suspension: snow globes. Right? The snow settles to the bottom over time. It is an unevenly mixed mixture. It is a heterogeneous mixture. And let's summarize by giving you a chart for classifying matter. If you have a sample of matter, you can classify it as either a pure substance or a mixture. If it's a pure substance, you should further be able to classify it as either an element or a compound. If you have a mixture, you can further classify it as a homogeneous mixture, that is, a mixture that is evenly mixed, also called a solution, or an unevenly mixed mixture, which is a heterogeneous mixture.